All set, actually. Just work.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Town of East Bridgewater Planning Board. It's Monday evening, April 5th, 2021. Currently present for the board, Kevin O'Reilly, Associate Member. John Lawler, regular members. These are all regular members. John Lawler, Rob Lyons. Lindy Snow is on a remote link. Christine Hanley, our clerk. Myself, Roy Gardner, Chairman. Also present are Dorothy Simpson. And
Ellen's out there.
and Ellen McKenzie, who's also present tonight. So first item of business, I'd like to acknowledge that we're going to have a change in board membership. Member Rob Lyons, who's present tonight, this is his last meeting. So we want to thank him for his investment in time over the years as a member of the planning board. Also want to acknowledge Steve Belcher, who's currently our vice chairman, who also is not running for re-election this year. He's a longtime member of over 20 years. So we also want to thank him for his longtime service to the town as a member of the planning board. And given that, I think it's, from what I just said, we're going to have two new members starting in our next meeting, following annual town elections coming up this Saturday. And again, I thank you, Rob, for your service to the board over the years.
No, thank you, Roy. I really appreciate the help. It's been a lot of fun.
You will be missed.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on to our public hearings. We have 5 public hearings tonight, which is going to be most of our, and also note that Sheila Savoy Glidden is now present, associate member. So first public hearing that we have this evening is for a modification in the zoning bylaw. Do you want to read the? Sure. Do you have the legal ad there? If you don't, I have a copy right here. That's it. So we're going to start our meeting by having our clerk read the legal ad that ran in the Brockton Enterprise on March 22nd and March 29th. So if you could, Christine.
The Town of East Bridgewater Planning Board, notice of public hearing, proposed zoning change. The Planning Board of the Town of East Bridgewater will hold a public hearing on Monday, April 5th at 7:05 p.m. in the auditorium of the East Bridgewater High School, 143 Plymouth Street, pursuant to MGL Chapter 40A, Section 5, to review and discuss amending the East Bridgewater zoning bylaw by making changes in the language to Section 3, definitions. Outdoor dining to remove requirement for a special permit as petitioned by the Planning Board. Please note that the complete text of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is available for viewing at www.eastbridgewatermass.gov, plan building page, and call 508-378-1607. Notice was published in the East Bridgewater, in the Enterprise, on Monday, March 22nd, 2020.
2021.
Was it 2021?
It was 2021.
And Monday, March 29th, 2021?
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's correct. Okay, this time I'm going to declare the hearing open. This is a relatively simple change. The proposed change is in our definitions under the term outdoor dining. It currently reads that outdoor dining can only be allowed by special permit granted by the planning board. That language, by special permit granted by the planning board, is proposed to be stricken from the bylaw and replaced by the language that says, following submittal of a detailed outdoor dining plan to the building inspector and subsequent issuance of a building permit for said outdoor dining use. There's one other slight change. We strike in the second paragraph the words "in conjunction with a special permit." We add a little further down that the total number of seats occupied, both indoors and outdoors, shall not exceed the restaurant's existing maximum number of seats. So what that basically says is that outdoor dining will be allowed providing that a detailed plan is submitted to the building inspector. The building inspector determines that that plan shows that all of the proposed changes to construct an outdoor dining facility at whatever restaurant it is meets all the requirements under the zoning bylaw prior to his issuance of a building permit. It also goes on to say later on, when we added the word occupied, that the total number of seats occupied both indoors and outdoors shall not exceed the restaurant's existing maximum number of seats. Those number of seats are determined by several licenses that are issued by other boards, specifically the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Health. So the planning board has no direct issuance of licenses for restaurants. That's handled by two other boards. But the intent of the outdoor dining is not to increase the seating within the restaurant facility. Simply allow for outdoor dining at the restaurant site. So is there any questions or comments members of the board have?
Chairman, is it the intention that the planning board would be taken out of the equation entirely in this process?
That's correct.
If that is the case, then would we not be well-served by striking also the sentence that follows the, in conjunction with the special permit that is already being stricken? Because it does indicate that we're still requiring a formal, reviewed per the site plan approval of the bylaw, a section of the bylaw, which talks about planning board and so on and so forth.
So I'm going to stand corrected. He still has to file a site plan because the building inspector is going to require that as part of the filing. So as we all know, technically speaking, under state law, a site plan is an advisory opinion from the planning board.
Correct.
So we're free to offer our opinion on that plan that's part of the building permit application. The final call on the zoning is actually up to the building inspector.
Right, but the question, I guess, is, again, if I look at this, they're required to submit a detailed site plan. The planning board then has 25 days within which to review that site plan, and so on and so forth. So I'm just wondering whether the intention is that that whole process remains in place, or whether it's really just a building commissioner's call at this point, and if that is perhaps the case, then for clarification.
We'll avoid trying to discuss some of the legal semantics of site plan here, but the intent is that the site plan be filed, and the planning board has the same timeline, basically, as the building inspector to issue a building permit for us to return our opinion. I would expect that if it doesn't comply with zoning, the building inspector is already going to know what the answer is from us. So I don't think we want to strike that, because the building inspector still does want a detailed site plan as part of his building permit application. And given the vagaries, if you will, of site plan approval, I'm not sure we want to totally remove that.
The only reason I asked the question is just because my understanding was that the intent is to facilitate the ability of restaurants who have adopted or developed outdoor seating areas during the COVID emergency would not have to come back and go through an extended process in order to bless those going forward.
So I believe, based on the discussion with the building inspector, that since those were all granted under a state of emergency act, that
Right.
they now exist, and therefore, since this zoning change was just advertised, that this zoning change would not apply to them.
Good.
So the existing restaurants which have built outdoor dining under the state emergency act that was granted as part of the COVID emergency would not be subject to this since they already exist prior to the first notice of publication, which was March 22nd.
Okay.
Going forward, they would be subject to it.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Roy,
Yes.
if they take a section of land for outside dining, what happens if they take parking spots away? With the same amount of people able to go to the restaurant, are they gonna have sufficient parking?
So that would be one of the issues that officially we would comment on to the building inspector, and the building inspector would have to address. Because typically, the number of parking spaces in a restaurant are deemed adequate based on a seat count inside the restaurant.
Okay.
So if they were to actually use marked parking spaces to where they built their outdoor dining, then at least theoretically, that would require a reduction in the allowed seating capacity at any given time.
Correct, okay.
So
Thank you.
the building inspector would clearly have to flag that, and then we'd have to, I guess, talk to the issuing authorities of the licenses to see if they are willing to, and the applicant, to see if they're willing to reduce their head count in total to allow for the outdoor dining space, if it does in fact take parking spaces away.
Right, okay, great,
Okay.
thanks.
Thank you,
Yes.
Lindy.
Mhm.
Anyone else here? Anyone here in the audience want to ask any questions about that?
So Roy, the process is that if somebody wanted outdoor dining as part of a restaurant that they were opening, they would come here for site plan approval, and it would show the outdoor seating. And the outdoor seating, those number of seats would be counted in the maximum number of occupants for the premises.
No,
And then,
because typically in New England, you don't count those seats as part of the maximum occupancy, but it does not allow them to increase the head count they can have at the restaurant at any given time. So if they put 40 seats outside, and all 40 seats are occupied, that means that to live within their head count requirement for their licenses, they would have to have 40 empty seats inside, unless they went to the license issuing authority and asked to expand the head count.
right, so it would be in the total that they would be granted.
Yes.
Right. And then so once they get approval on site plan, they would go and get a building permit, build out their space, and get permission from the building inspector to go and, as that allowed use, be able to have seating outside. So is that the process that we're clarifying? And that they no longer need to get a special permit to serve and dine outside?
For outdoor dining, they don't need a special permit.
Right.
If it's a new restaurant with any amount of seating and size, it would probably require a special permit for the new restaurant site. An existing restaurant site would only require a site plan approval for outdoor dining.
So you would just be looking at the outdoor?
Because
Seating.
this all falls under the heading and the definitions of outdoor dining.
Okay. I was just confused because of the sentence talking about submitting to the building inspector, and then further going on talking about the special permits, or the site plan approval.
Yeah, originally, we discussed taking that line out, but the building inspector wasn't in favor of that because he wants to see a detailed site plan that has some definition within our bylaws.
Got it.
And there is a definition within the site plan approval process of what that plan needs to be. Okay?
Thanks.
Is it intended, Roy, that there's some difference between an outdoor dining plan and a site plan?
Well, the site plan has to include the entire site and show all the marked parking areas and everything else, and then where the physical outdoor site will be. So it would basically be in addition to the existing site plan for that location, so that the building inspector can make a clear determination that it's not going to impact on the existing parking. One of the restaurants that did outdoor parking took 18 seats, 18 parking, I'm sorry, outdoor dining, took 18 parking spaces away from their restaurant. Another one that did outdoor dining under the emergency put the deck, if you will, in front of the restaurant. So they didn't impact any of their parking. So the building inspector would have to make a call as to whether or not the change in parking would have to reduce the head count, or how they were going to handle that. The primary intent of this change, though, is to simply allow any outdoor dining that got put in place after the emergency to be grandfathered, if you will. And new ones to existing restaurants are no longer going to require a special permit, just site plan approval. That's part of the current building inspector's intent, that we should move more and more things out of the special permit category and into simply a site plan approval category. We need further discussion on that, on a lot of those items, but on this one, I think, at least I was comfortable with what he was asking to do. And
No, I mean, I think that the idea, the premise is fine. I mean, I think to Christine's point, you're sort of, I just don't want there to be a confusion, and, you know, again, I'm looking at it from the outside.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm coming to the town of East Bridgewater as, with my client, to, what does he need to bring to the town of East Bridgewater? Well, now I have something that says I need an outdoor dining plan. Well, what's that? I know what a site plan is, because that's defined. So I'm just trying to potentially avoid confusion, if that's my own motive here. No, that's certainly
yeah,
support the...
I'm not entirely sure what the building inspector himself requires when they,
Yeah.
but he's responsible for the,
I think as long as one substantially equals the other, there's no issue.
yeah. Okay. Again, anything else?
So you mentioned that anybody during the COVID relief who had outdoor dining would be grandfathered under this, so they would not have to come before us for site plan approval?
That's correct. Because this,
And do we know who was granted or not granted, and if that caused any issues for anybody?
there's two in town that I'm aware of that were granted rights to add outdoor dining during the emergency, and that's Fiesta right up in the
Fiesta.
center, where they put a deck out in front of the building, right on Route 18.
Johnny Mac?
And Johnny Macaroni's down on
Outside.
106, down near the intersection of 106 with Washington Street.
So if
They just basically took a piece of their parking lot, blocked it off, and put tables in it.
So if they took away parking spaces, are we saying they forever don't have to have meet the minimum parking count? I'm just trying to clarify. I'm not against outdoor dining. I'm very much in favor of it.
That's going to have to be a zoning call with the
Didn't
building
Johnny Mac's,
inspector.
they originally did that, but then they put a deck on the
They
side
did
of the
finally
building.
add a deck,
Right.
and I'm not sure they ever used it, but, because I think by the time the deck was done, it was winter time. but
Yeah, but I think that,
The deck doesn't encroach on the parking lot anywhere
Right.
near as much as the outdoor dining originally did. But the call on where that's going to sit with parking spaces when the emergency act ends is really going to have to be up to the building inspector as to what his view of that is.
So what his view of it is, he could ask them to come back here to get a site plan approval?
No, he could ask them to go to the licensing authorities and get the head count reduced to match up to the parking requirement.
Okay.
What if that doesn't happen?
Well, that's a zoning enforcement officer issue, which we'll try and avoid getting too deeply into, since that's part of a different office effectively. Okay, anything else? Okay, if we could have entertain a motion to close the public hearing for,
move to close the public hearing on the outdoor dining article.
Second?
so that's a motion, Riley, second Lyons, to close the public hearing. Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 All those opposed? We're going to say that's 7 in favor, none opposed. That's all of the members that are present tonight. All right, the next item is another public hearing. This public hearing is again a zoning bylaw change. This zoning bylaw change is a modification of a definition within our section of Lot A requirements. We'll open the public hearing by first having Christine read the notice of public hearing that was published in the Brockton Enterprise. If you would, Christine.
Town of East Bridgewater Planning Board, notice of public hearing, proposed zoning change. The Planning Board of the Town of East Bridgewater will hold a public hearing on Monday, April 5th,
Yes.
2021, at 7:10 PM in the auditorium of the East Bridgewater High School, 143 Plymouth Street, pursuant to MGL Chapter 40A, Section 5, to review and discuss amending the East Bridgewater zoning bylaw by making changes to the language to Section 6, Location A, lot requirements for all principal buildings, 10, as petitioned by the Planning Board. Please note that the complete text of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is available for viewing at www.eastbridgewatermass.gov plan building page, or call 508-378-1607. Notice was published in the Enterprise on Monday, March 22nd, 2021, and also on Monday, March 29th, 2021.
Okay, so this is what's referred to in our zoning bylaw as Section 6, Lot A requirements for all principal buildings, Note 10. This is a note that was actually left over from when we revised the zoning bylaw in 1987. There needed to be a wording change made in that note that didn't get made. It was brought to our attention by the current building inspector when he was working on some stuff that we're referring to as the green communities, I believe, when they noted that there's wording that said that in all business and industrial districts, a new building requires a special permit. That's no longer the case in East Bridgewater, and has not been since 1987, although the wording in that note was still there. So the new wording says in all business and industrial districts, a site plan approval shall be obtained from the planning board. The site plan approval shall show adequate parking, open space, and so on and so forth. Last sentence is added to that now says, refer to each individual zoning district allowed uses for further requirements. Each of those individual districts has a section in the first section that allows for some buildings to be built with site plan approval only, and a second section which allows buildings over a certain size to be built only with special permit approval. So this wording is being revised to match the existing bylaw sections in the business 1 through 5 districts and the industrial districts, so that the smaller buildings now require a site plan approval. So that's consistent with the wording that already exists in the rest of the bylaw. So we'll go to the board. Any questions, comments from the board? Any questions from anyone here in the audience? Okay, hearing no questions, I guess we can entertain a motion at this time to close the public hearing for the Section 6, Note 10 zoning change.
So moved.
Second?
So that's a motion Riley, second Hanley, to close the public hearing. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Okay, and we'll note that that public hearing is closed, and it's closed at, with a unanimous vote of all 7 members voting at 7:25 PM. All right, okay, so we have a third public hearing to open. We'll start off by doing that with having Christine Hanley read the notice of public hearing.
East Bridgewater Planning Board, notice of public hearing, proposed zoning change. The Planning Board of East Bridgewater will hold a public hearing on Monday, April 5th, 2021, at 7:15 PM in the auditorium of the East Bridgewater High School, 143 Plymouth Street, pursuant to MGL Chapter 40A, Section 5, to review and discuss amending the East Bridgewater zoning bylaw by adding new language to Section 14, marijuana not medically prescribed, to allow marijuana cultivators and marijuana product manufacturers, and by amending the special permit allowed uses, industrial zone, Section 5K, 2D, marijuana cultivators and marijuana product manufacturers, and adding new Section 5K2E, any other commercial use, which the Planning Board also adding a new Section 15, marijuana cultivators and marijuana product manufacturers, purpose, applicability, general requirements, and special permit requirements, as petitioned to the Planning Board by the Board of Selectmen. Please note that the complete text of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is available for viewing at www.eastbridgewatermass.gov, planning building page, or call 508-378-1607. Published notice in the Enterprise on Monday, March 22nd, 2021, and also on Monday, March 29th, 2021.
All right, so this is an article that was forwarded to us via the town administrator from the Board of Selectmen, which would allow marijuana to be cultivated within the town of East Bridgewater. I'll ask, if he's willing to, I'll ask Peter Spagone, one of our selectmen who's present, to give us a quick description of the intent of this. I can say from my past discussions with the town administrator that the intent of the article generally is to allow indoor cultivation of marijuana, no sales and no distribution within the town, but cultivation, and the primary intent of that was to at least hopefully get East Bridgewater into the income-producing stream that all of these manufacturing facilities are contributing to other communities, and at that, I'll let Mr. Spagone comment further.
Thank you, Scott. Yes. So prior to me coming on the board, there was discussions about a potential cultivating company that had interest in the East Bridgewater area. They discussed the potential of bringing this to the voters. I can, at this point, only obviously speak for myself from the Board of Selectmen. We, as a group, I believe, all agree that, if we need to bring this to the voters to make a determination whether they'd like to pass this or not, I don't have any issue with that at all. Again, there was a little bit of communication between the board and our former administrator, Mr. Noble. I don't think any of the board was familiar that, or was knowledgeable that this was going to come in front of the planning board this quickly, but that being said, I would say that, it's certainly open to discussion by the planning board as well. If, they feel we need to bring this to the voters, which I'm not opposed to personally, then that's what we should do. At the end of the day, they get the final say on anything that's brought to the town and passed or not passed. So hopefully that kind of clears up where it all became from. Again, it was prior to me being on the board, but again, I continue to say if it's something the voters want to see happen, then we should present it to them and let them make the final decision.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Spagone. Do you have any questions here on the board?
So this is just a motion to bring it to the voters and let them make the decision?
No, technically what we're doing on the last two hearings and this hearing
Right.
is to officially make a recommendation on town meeting floor as to what we would suggest the town meeting do in terms of a positive vote or a negative vote on the three articles, including this one. So our role here is simply to allow for the public to be aware of what the proposed zoning change is, number one.
Right.
And number two, to make an advisory report to town meeting, offering the opinion of the planning board. We will be voting shortly. Typically, we take votes on all of our public hearing items at the end of our meeting. So we will take an advisory vote on each of these three zoning articles to then go to town meeting with recommendations. Because of the timing of the way these works, the three articles are actually already committed to be on the warrant for annual town meeting.
Okay.
So the statutory process is we make a recommendation at town meeting as to where we think these articles fit in and whether they should be passed by the town.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone here in the room have any questions about the indoor manufacturing and cultivating of marijuana pursuant to General Law 94G, which is part of the wording in the article? Mr. Spagone.
Yeah, so, Mr. Gardner, through you, the chair, I guess I'm a little unclear. I was under the assumption that the planning board was just going to agree upon the wording of the article itself, and not particularly whether they are for or against. I just want to clear that
Actually,
up.
the wording of the article itself has come from, I believe, 3 iterations back and forth from the town administrator with town council.
Okay.
I believe, like we usually do on zoning items like this, where they're governed under a higher level mass general laws, that they've taken the advice of the state attorney general as to how the wording ought to be handled, and taken other samples from other towns that have already been passed previously. So what we're doing here is to basically look this over. I don't think we're in a position to change any of the wording, since it's about 8 pages long and it was already reviewed several times by town council. So our position will be to take whatever feedback we get here and then decide to make a recommendation to town meeting, either a recommendation to adopt or a recommendation to disapprove at town meeting. The final vote is actually up to town meeting.
I mean, that's what the discussion was earlier. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on the position that you're taking. But if that's the way that you view it as the chair of the planning board and the rest of the board, that's completely fine with me as well. Okay.
Yeah, normally on a zoning proposal that was forwarded to us from the selectmen, we would not recommend changing wording unless we felt there was something within the wording that didn't comply with the minimum requirements under state law for a zoning proposal. And since this has already been iterated through town council several times, I'm satisfied, at least individually, that this meets muster in terms of legalities for the zoning.
A couple of times, so as long as that's clear, then the board can do it as they feel is just, for sure. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, so at this point, I think we can entertain a motion. I'm sorry.
Clear. Make
Do we have a
sure-
name, please?
This is Dave Walsh. Is this on? I just want to be clear and understand, this is already prepared to be on the warrant for town meeting?
Yes.
Can you ask that again, Dave? I didn't catch the...
Is it prepared to be on the warrant for town meeting?
My understanding is it's already an assigned warrant article number for annual town meeting.
This is strictly for a cultivation facility, not a dispensary.
That's correct.
So it's just in one of those sealed, locked environments that's controlled, and there's no street access or people coming and going from it.
No, this is strictly a marijuana cultivator and manufacturer as defined under state law, which would be inside a building, and the actual product would be shipped off somewhere else to be packaged and sold.
Benefit for this to the community, and maybe Mr. Spagone can validate that, would be like a community impact type fund setup.
So I think I can partly answer to that, because I've done some research on what the benefit would be, and all of the towns that have passed this piece of the marijuana state laws, so that they can do manufacturing and cultivating, have six-figure monies coming in from the manufacturers. How that money gets distributed would be up to the financial people in town. The Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen, I believe, would have to decide how that gets distributed.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay, so I guess at this time, we can entertain a motion to close the public hearing on the marijuana not medically prescribed bylaw.
So moved.
Second.
So that's a motion, Riley. Second, Lawler. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Again, we'll show that as 7 in favor, none opposed, to close the public hearing. We'll call it 7:37 PM.
And we're going to vote later on whether we recommend or
Yes.
not recommend.
We're going to go back on all three of these and have a discussion on recommendations to make to town meeting. So the next item on the agenda we have is a special permit, site plan for Speedway Park LLC. Yes. Why don't we go ahead and, Christine, if you would read the public hearing notice.
East Bridgewater Planning Board, notice of public hearing, special permit application. The Planning Board of the Town of East Bridgewater will hold a public hearing on Monday, April 5th, 2021, at 7:30 PM in the auditorium of the East Bridgewater High School, 143 Plymouth Street. The purpose of the hearing will be to review a special permit modification application with plans submitted by Speedway Park LLC, owner applicant, and prepared by PMP Associates. The subject property is located at 178 North Bedford Street and consists of approximately 4.2 acres of land. The zoning district is industrial, and the parcel is shown on East Bridgewater Assessor's Map 109, Lot 3. The applicant seeks to construct a 12,000 square foot building and a 30,000 square foot building with proposed use to be contractor bays, storage facilities. Allowed by special permit within the industrial zone and amend a previously approved 7,470 square foot from the holistic medical building to an allowed use in the industrial zone. The Planning Board pursuant to Section 5K2A of the Town of East Bridgewater zoning bylaw in Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 11, seeks public input relative to the special permit. The plans are on file with the Planning Building Department and can be reviewed during normal business hours or call 508-378-1607. Notice was published in the Enterprise on Monday, March 22nd, 2021, and also on Monday, March 29th, 2021.
Okay, thank you, Christine. I'm going to declare the hearing open at 7:41 PM. I believe Mr. Payton is here. So I just want to make him aware of the fact that I think this is deja vu, but because we have an election coming up this Saturday, two of our current regular members will no longer be members of the board as of Saturday. We'll have 2 new regular members. So the situation we have right now is we have 7 members present. One of those won't be here at our next meeting. So we have 6 members present who are sitting on this special permit hearing. Those include alternates Sheila Savoy Glidden and Kevin Riley. I will offer, based on town council advice, Mr. Payton's opportunity to have us just continue this public hearing until our next meeting, which is, in fact, Monday, May 3rd, when our 2 new members should be present. And I'll leave that option up to him. Otherwise, we'll just continue on and have the public hearing. What this amounts to is, in all likelihood, those 2 new members will not be allowed to vote on this, and we'll have to use the votes from the 6 members who are currently present, who will be here, at least theoretically, at our next meeting. That includes our 2 alternates and 4
3.
4 regular members, including Lindy Snow, who's present remotely. So hearing no objection to continue, we'll continue and go ahead with our presentation. Would prefer not to do that for lots of different reasons, but if we don't have the correct number of members present to be able to record a supermajority vote, which is required, we could potentially have to revisit the entire presentation. Again, I'll leave that up to the applicant, how he wants to handle that, Mr. Payton.
So what you're telling me, I guess what you're explaining to me is, I have to have everybody on this board here vote unanimously for this project tonight, or I have to redo the whole hearing. Is that what, is that?
Well, we could theoretically vote tonight, but we don't have feedback from 2 of the other boards that we need feedback from. So I don't believe the board would be ready to actually vote to approve or deny tonight.
But if I do a presentation, I'm gonna do it again next week, next month in front of two members. Is what you're saying. Or do
Who
it
would
all
not?
Next month in front of two members.
Based on a discussion I had today with town council, for those 2 members to be able to vote on it, they would have to be present for at least one of the presentation nights.
Okay.
And which would theoretically mean we have to redo the presentation, since they wouldn't have even been on the board up until our
Well, I
next
can
meeting.
understand that, I just don't understand why I'm here tonight then, if we knew that this was going to occur. It doesn't, it seems
Yeah,
like I should have been put on the May ballot, the May agenda instead of the
As
April.
it turns out, that's correct. We probably should have originally put you on for May. I'll take the heat for that. That's actually my mistake.
I'm not going to do it twice.
All right, request a continuance till the next meeting, where all those members can be present and hear the presentation all at once.
Okay, we'll do that, and that's my bad for this.
Move to continue the public hearing on Speedway Park LLC to our next meeting at 7:05, Dot?
7:05 PM.
Second?
What's the date
So
of the
that's a
meeting?
motion, Riley. I'm sorry.
What was the date of the meeting?
Hang on just a second. That's a motion, Riley.
May
A
3rd.
second, Hanley,
May 3.
to continue our public hearing to Monday, May 3rd, at 7:05 PM. And that meeting will be at Town Hall in the large meeting room.
Okay, thank you very much. And for the record, Greg Driscoll of Jacobs Driscoll Engineering at PMP Associates.
Okay, thank you.
representing, Peyton.
Do we just need to vote that?
What?
Do we need to vote that?
Yeah,
All right, one more public hearing, Chris.
We
we have
did-
to vote it.
What's that?
Vote to continue.
Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor of continuing the public hearing,
Aye.
say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That's 7 in favor, none opposed of the members present and voting tonight, and we'll call that at 7:46 PM. Okay, and we have one more public hearing tonight. This public hearing is for a subdivision proposal.
The Town of East Bridgewater Planning Board, notice of public hearing, definitive subdivision plan. The Planning Board of the Town of East Bridgewater will hold a public hearing on Monday, April 5th, 2021, at 7:45 PM in the auditorium of the East Bridgewater High School, 143 Plymouth Street. The purpose of the hearing will be to review a Form A subdivision application and plan submitted by PMP Associates on behalf of his client, MJL Construction Corp., owner of record, MCKA Development. The applicant is proposing a 5-lot subdivision, 5-lot single-family residential subdivision. The subject property is located on the northerly side of Captain's Way and consists of approximately 10 acres of land. Zoning classification residence 1 R1 lots as shown on East Bridgewater Assessors Map 110, lots 6, 7, and 8 through 10. The Planning Board, as required by the East Bridgewater Subdivision Rules and Regulations and the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 41, seeks 81T, seeks public input relative to its proposed subdivision. The plans are on file with the Planning and Building Department and can be reviewed between the hours of 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 12 noon. Notice was published in the Enterprise on Monday, March 22nd, 2021, and Monday, March 29th, 2021.
Okay, I'm going to declare the hearing officially open at 7:48 PM. And again, as was noted in the reading of the public hearing notice, this is a proposal for a subdivision referred to as definitive subdivision Tower Heights Phase 5, and it's for a what's shown as a new roadway with a temporary cul-de-sac at the end of it. The new roadway, based on the plan we have in front of us, would create 5 new lots to the northeast of Captain's Way, and the temporary cul-de-sac would end in a section of land referred to as remaining area, which is also a large parcel of land to the northeast of Captain's Way. So if we could have a name and
Sure. Greg Driscoll from Jacobs Driscoll Engineering and PMP Associates here tonight representing MJL Construction Corp. For the proposed Phase 5 to the Tower Heights subdivision. As the chair pointed out, this is to construct a 5-lot residential subdivision off of land that they own off of Captain's Way in East Bridgewater. The site is located in a residential R1 district on the northerly side of Captain's Way. All the surrounding areas are also zoned residential R1 with residential uses. Let's see. We meet all of the requirements for a definitive subdivision. We're asking for 2 waivers. Requirement for street jogs, center line of streets of less than 125 feet down to 85 feet from the proposed road to existing Northridge Drive. And another waiver is requirement for drainage pipes shall not be less than 30 inches of cover to a minimum of 18 inches of cover for a cross culvert pipe that we have. We designed the drainage system
could I ask where this filing stands with conservation right now?
We had our first meeting with Conservation a few weeks ago, and coming out of that meeting, they wanted to coordinate with Planning Board regarding the review consultant. They would like to try and use the same review consultant for both boards. I believe they use Allen & Major Associates. And they also wanted me to come back and let them know if Planning Board was going to handle the drainage review or if they were going to handle that side of it. And the way the drainage works is we have this proposed basin right here, kind of in the middle of the project. And all the land upland from the road, like it takes all the road and the house lots into the basin for stormwater control and infiltration and treatment. And then the land, this land up in here that currently flows overland across the property will get directed into these 3 cross culverts to go under the road and continue flowing across. That area doesn't need treatment. It's all people's yards and some wooded areas as well. So that was one way we were able to keep the drainage system smaller and just treat what needs to be treated, which is all the paved areas and impervious areas that are proposed for the project. And this back here is the remaining land of with the temporary turnaround, as you mentioned, and that would be a future development.
I'm having a hard time hearing the applicant. Could you try to speak up a little bit or
Sure,
talk
sorry.
directly into the mic with
Okay.
a little more volume?
Okay. Is there anything you want to go back over, or is there any questions?
No, that's
from the
okay.
board? Okay.
So I think just a quick question to clarify in the drainage. The drainage within the roadway itself is still going to be a standard roadway construction with Cape Cod berms either side, full manhole catch basin system with piping in the roadway. And then it's going to have its primary outlet in that, as you had mentioned, the reserved lot for the drainage system.
Correct. Yep.
So the newly constructed drainage component on that lot is going to be in front of the, what is it, the 25-foot buffer zone?
That's correct. Yep. It'll stay outside of the 25-foot no disturb buffer.
There is some grading on one side wall of the detention basin within the 50-foot buffer?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Then the overflow is up kind of in the northeast corner, and what overflow there is in the high-volume storms would end up in the existing wetlands area?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
The whole area drains towards this,
Yep.
the northerly wetland. That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Do we have any questions or comments from anyone on the board here?
Yeah, Roy, you
Yes.
said temporary cul-de-sac at the end?
It's shown as a temporary cul-de-sac. It's actually going to have a hammerhead turnaround.
Okay, so I was wondering if it was going to be future construction off of that temporary cul-de-sac.
Yes, there's potentially, in the existing land that's owned by MJL Construction, there's potentially 4 to 5, maybe even 6 more lots in the remaining lot parcel that's at the end of that. The plan at this time, as he's proposed, is to build out the roadway to get the 5 lots that he's showing, and as I understand it, when he's done with that, then he'll come back with whatever the additional will be.
Okay, so how does the drainage work around that cul-de-sac? Does the drainage go around that cul-de-sac and have to be interrupted when the future construction?
No, because he's not going to build a circular cul-de-sac. He's going to build a hammerhead turnaround, and the drainage is going to be centered in the roadway, exactly where the roadway would be if it's extended further.
Okay,
So there should be no retrofit, if you will, other than a connection from the extended roadway into the
Right.
existing system.
right, okay.
And based on the grades The grades all look correct, they're gonna be uphill of where that connection point would be, so. It looks like it would work without any major differences, provided everything is installed per the plans that they're showing us right now.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep, all that is correct, and furthermore, we have designed the
We get
detention
closer
basin
to, we get closer to the mic.
That's all correct, and we've also designed the detention basin to take all the flow from the anticipated extension of that road before it hits the peak in elevation of the road, and would head back downhill towards the easterly wetland. So that would, when we do extend it, there'll be another detention basin needed for that back section.
Okay. Anything else here, questions on the board? Any questions for any members here in the audience on the subdivision proposal? Okay, so to be clear here, there's a bunch of things that are going to be happening here. We're going to be forwarding this to engineering review, to an engineering firm, who I'll acknowledge, as of right now, hasn't been determined who that will be. That should be happening within the next week or so.
Okay.
That's one of the ongoing projects we're working on right now, is hiring an engineering review firm for the town. As was already mentioned, we work closely with conservation. Typically, the way we do these is we'll review the engineering calculations for the in-roadway infrastructure improvements. Conservation will be responsible for all the off-roadway, wetlands-related issues and drainage design.
Okay.
Obviously, those two have to be done closely together, but we'll defer to conservation in terms of the actual disposal of the stormwater runoff. We're also waiting to hear from the police department and fire department, although this does appear to meet all of the requirements that we've previously been asked, and I know they've already looked at the Hammerhead turnaround in terms of its design for capability to handle their larger trucks. Officially, at our next meeting, we'll have hopefully all of the responses from all of those, and go over all of those together at the same time.
Okay.
Certainly, if we get any of those before our next meeting, we'll forward them to you immediately.
Okay, appreciate
So
it.
you can have I know. So we'll forward those to you immediately as we get them. Hopefully, everything we're going to get will be electronically, and we can simply forward them to you the day we get them. I guess at that point, I'll leave it at that. Any other comments, members of the board?
So has the applicant received these comments yet from,
He should have received everything we've got so far.
you received the comments from the fire department? Okay.
Yeah, and we'll forward any other comments we get from either the police or even conservation. Conservation should be forwarding directly on their own, but we'll be watching conservation's comments as we look at the plans as well to see whether or not they impact anything we need to be worried about. But from a zoning standpoint, which is going to be the majority of what we're looking at, and the physical roadway layout, it looks pretty good as far as I can see. Albeit we haven't done a full engineering review yet, so. Okay? Anyone else? Again, anyone else in the room here? All right, given that, we are going to continue this hearing to one more night, because we should get the engineering review in as part of the official public hearing process. So we are going to continue the public hearing until Monday evening, May 3rd. We'll say 7:25 p.m. And if I could have a motion to continue the public hearing to that date and time.
So moved. Second.
So we have a motion, Lyons, second, Lawler. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Not voting.
Okay, we're going to show that is 5 in favor, none opposed. Since this is a subdivision public hearing, The alternates are not authorized under current state law to vote on a subdivision. So that's 5 in favor, none opposed. And we'll call that hearing adjourned or continued at 8:01 PM. Thank you. Okay, a couple of quick housekeeping things, and then we'll move on to the recommendations for those zoning articles at town meeting. We have finally received a written request from Mr. Celebrity to withdraw his application for special permits without prejudice. Those were the special permits for his contractor buildings, contractor storage bays on North Bedford Street. So at this point in time, I think we can entertain a motion to accept Mr. Celebrity's application to withdraw without prejudice.
Happily so moved. Happily so moved.
Happily, right.
Happily so moved. Okay.
Gonna miss Mr. Sullivan.
I've been here since I have, Rob, so.
So we have a motion, Kevin Riley, do we have a second?
Second.
Second, John Lawler, to accept Mr. Celebrity's application to withdraw a special permit without prejudice. All those, do we have any discussion on that, other than what we've already heard? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We'll show that as unanimous vote of all 7 members present and voting. Couple of other quick notes. As we've already stated, the annual town election is Saturday the 10th, that's this Saturday.
Get out and vote.
Annual town meeting is scheduled for Monday, May 10th, which is about a month after annual town election. And at that, we'll leave the rest of the other matters on the agenda and move over to recommendations at town meeting.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Move to approve the minutes of March 15th, 2021,
I'm sorry, I missed that.
as drafted.
And bills.
Okay, we did have some bills, okay. So, we'll do the other business that I skipped over because we started a little late. The minutes review the minutes of March 15th. We do have a motion, Riley, to approve those minutes.
Second.
Second, Lyons. Discussion on the approval of the minutes. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 All those opposed?
I abstain, I wasn't here. I wasn't here, so I can't approve.
Okay, you can actually, we'll talk about that later, though. So we'll show that as a 6 in favor with Christine Hanley abstaining. Next item, we have bills advertising for the zoning bylaw changes in the enterprise. There's a total of 3 bills. Are they all on one?
2 bills?
We're just paying for 2 of them.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So we're paying 2 of those bills, and those are the 2 zoning changes proposed by the planning board. Outdoor dining, the advertising bill was $360.72. The Section 6 location, Note 10, was $360.72, for a total of $721.44.
Move to approve the payment of 721.44 to the enterprise for public hearing publications.
I'll
So
second that.
that's a motion, Riley, second, Lyons. Further discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And we will show that as 7 in favor, none opposed. Okay, so on the recommendations that we're going to make on town meeting floor.
One other thing, Mr. Chairman, before we, do you want to act on the request from Mr. DeFrias on the hidden 80 Oak Street for a further extension? Do you note a letter from Mr. Koska's firm?
Who is that?
The 7 PM,
Oh, yeah, I think we're well within our timeline, but I guess we should probably do that, and that is, we should officially extend the or allow a letter requesting continued decision process on the Graham subdivision at 80 Oak Street. We do have a letter requesting us to extend that process so we don't have to make a decision if we run against the timeline. So we could make a recommendation or a vote to accept that letter. So is that a motion, Mr. Riley?
Again, given the nature, Mr. Chairman, I wouldn't make the motion, given the nature of the business.
You're right. That's a subdivision, so can we have a
I'll
motion
make a
to...
motion to continue.
So we got a motion, Lyons, second Lawler.
Second.
To accept an extension of the subdivision approval process for the subdivision proposed for 80 Oak Street. Just for the record, I'm supposed to have a quick discussion tomorrow with the engineer who, as I understand it, has come up with a couple of other options on how they want to handle that, so I'll have some feedback at our next meeting, if not sooner. But on the motion to extend the decision period based on the letter from Mr. Graham for 80 Oak Street, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No vote.
And we'll show that as 5 in favor, none opposed, with the both alternates abstaining. Thank you for that, Kevin. All right. Now back to the zoning bylaws. The first recommendation would be to town meeting for the East Bridgewater zoning bylaw, Section 3 definitions, which is the modification to outdoor dining.
Move to recommend the amendment to Section 3 definitions, outdoor dining as presented.
Second.
Okay, so that's a motion, Riley, second Lawler, I believe. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We'll show that as unanimous vote of all 7 members present and voting, and that includes the vote of the 2 alternates. Okay, next item was to change the business industrial bylaw to reword Note 10 to eliminate the requirement for a special permit in all districts and change the wording as we discussed in the public hearing to be consistent with the changes that we made in the zoning bylaw in 1987, where individual zoning districts have allowed use further requirements listed individually.
Move to approve or recommend the approval of the amendment to Section 6, location, Note 10, as presented.
Second?
So that's a motion, Riley, second, Hanley. Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we'll show that as unanimous vote of all 7 members present and voting. Okay, then the vote on the third proposed zoning amendment. This is the one to allow marijuana cultivation and manufacturing pursuant to state laws, where the description of cultivation and manufacturing is contained. Per the, I believe it's a 6-page amendment that's been proposed through the Board of Selectmen in the Town of Administrator to be presented at town meeting. Discussion?
Make the motion to recommend the approval of the amendments to Section 14, marijuana not medically prescribed. The amendment to Section 5K2, D and E as presented, and the addition of a new Section 15 with the caveat that Section C7 be amended to eliminate the double negative in subpart B. I recognize what you said earlier, Roy, but I think that's one that's right now, I assume that they mean that the odor cannot be detected, and the way that it's written, doesn't mean that, I think.
Which of the pages is that on?
How can I just, it's on the 3-page, add new section 15. No. Yep. So it's,
Okay, so that, yeah.
and cannot is the double negative. If you read it. Right?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
can be detected.
Okay. So that's a minor change, just to correct a paragraph that said that manufacture shall be ventilated in such a manner so that no, and then it said odor from marijuana cannot be detected. It should be odor from marijuana can be detected by a person. So it changes it to a single negative to make it grammatically correct.
Right.
Okay. So that's a motion, Riley. Did we get a second to that? Second, Lawler?
Yep.
All those in favor of the, any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
So that's 6 in favor with 1 opposed. The negative vote was Christine Hanley. Okay, so I think for tonight, that's going to be everything. Is there anything else anybody has that we need to discuss tonight before we adjourn? Anyone in the room have anything they want to discuss before we adjourn? Given that, I think we can entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:13 PM.
I will make that motion to adjourn.
Rob Lyons, an ultimate motion.
That's it.
We have a motion, Lyons, second.
Second.
Lawler? To adjourn at 8:13 PM. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We'll show that as unanimous vote of 7 members present and voting. Thank you all. Thank you, Wendy.